Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. BKFC 56 on December 2nd in Salt Lake City, Utah was just set, and the main event is going to be an absolute banger of a war. Eddie Alvarez versus Mike Perry. Let me tell you guys why in today's video Eddie Alvarez is going to win this fight. Platinum Mike Perry is currently 3-0 in bare knuckle boxing with wins over Michael Venom Page and Luke Rockhold, where he absolutely embarrassed Luke Rockhold and made him quit. Whereas Eddie Alvarez is currently 1-0 in bare knuckle boxing with a war of a win over Chad Mendes in a split decision victory. The first thing that you guys need to know about this fight is that Mike Perry has been winning his bare knuckle boxing fighting not only by being a good technical boxer, but more importantly, having the heart, the grit, the toughness, the power, the cardio, and the stamina in order to beat guys like Michael Venom Page, who on paper is more of a technical striker than him. Not only this, but Michael Venom Page was actually winning the early rounds of their bare knuckle boxing fight. But again, Platinum Mike Perry came forward in the later rounds and stole the fight. And then with Luke Rockhold, he had no business ever bare knuckle boxing, as he really does not have the heart and grit of a bare knuckle boxer. But this is something Mike Perry absolutely will not be able to rely upon in this fight. Make no mistake about it, guys. Most bare knuckle boxing fights do come down to the heart, the grit, and the toughness, as that is the nature of this sport. But in this fight, this is not going to be the case. The winner of this fight is going to be the one with the technical advantage. Eddie Alvarez is as tough as they come. Eddie Alvarez will never quit. He will never gas out. You really do have to separate him from consciousness in order to beat him on the feet. So now let me dive into some history with these two. Let me tell you guys why further Eddie Alvarez will not quit in this fight, and that factor will not be a factor in this fight. And overall, let me explain to you guys why Eddie Alvarez does have the slight technical advantage here. So Eddie is currently 39 years old, and he is about to turn 40, which is a bit of a concern. But again, he looked really good against an explosive, juiced up on steroids version of Chad Mendes. He is 5'9" with a 69-inch reach, whereas Mike Platinum Perry is 32 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. This fight will take place at 175, and overall, Mike Perry is used to being the bigger fighter in there, primarily fighting at 170, whereas Eddie Alvarez, the majority of his career, he did fight at 155, but overall, guys, I do not see a significant strength or size advantage for Michael Perry in this fight. Diving into some of the significant fights these guys have had on the feet in their MMA career, Eddie Alvarez has beaten Justin Gaethje, he beat Anthony Showtime Pettis, he beat Michael Chandler, and RDA. Specifically, guys, those Justin Gaethje and RDA performances are absolutely incredible. Eddie Alvarez is one of those fun fighters to go back and watch some of his wars on the feet. He really does have that warrior mentality. Whereas Mike Perry has not proven as much as Eddie Alvarez has in the octagon at the very least, as his most significant win is over Paul Felder and Alex Oliveira. But in my opinion, Mike Perry's most impressive performance, where he really did show that grit, showed that heart, and showed a lot of technique on the feet in the boxing realm, was that split decision loss against Vicente Luque. I rewatched that fight in order to prepare for this video, and overall, it was a razor close decision loss for Mike Perry, losing on the second and third round due to damage. But again, this was a very impressive performance nonetheless. So both guys are going to be fighting from orthodox in this fight, and Mike Perry loves the big overhand rights. He dips down and throws it with so much power behind it. Mike Perry really does throw with more power behind his shots than Eddie Alvarez does, and overall, he does overextend on his punches, which again causes a significant power to be behind them, but it does open him up for a solid amount of counters, something I do expect Eddie Alvarez to capitalize on. Contrary to popular belief with Mike Perry, he actually has pretty sound fundamental boxing defense, as he has pretty good head movement. He has solid slips when he's not throwing, but when he is throwing strikes, that's when his striking defense does fall out the window. Mike Perry is very susceptible for boxing shots on the feet when he is throwing and when he is in that offensive mindset. He throws huge hooks with huge amounts of power behind them, and these hooks are extremely effective, especially in being BKFC over MMA, as it's very tough to block these shots. Something I do really like out of Mike Perry is he does a very good job at level changing with his strikes. He loves that straight to the body. He loves those big hooks to the body overall, and he does mix in the headshots with the body shots really nicely. Mike Perry has a pretty solid jab as well, and I do think his game plan with that reach advantage will be to stick behind the jab. Now, comparing him to Eddie Alvarez has much tighter, faster hooks with less power behind them, but he's much less open to counters on the feet as he keeps those hooks and overall overhands extremely tight to him. And when he throws that jab, they both have good jabs, but Eddie Alvarez throws a much tighter, quicker jab from his hip. Eddie has very solid head movement and overall a good guard for hooks, but uppercuts and straights are a bit susceptible with the type of guard he has, so that's something I do think Mike Perry is going to look to capitalize on, as Mike Perry does have a good uppercut as well. Eddie's combos are just so much faster and more crisp than Mike Perry though. Again, he takes a little bit of power off of them to beat you with that speed and quick twitch muscle fibers that Eddie Alvarez does still have to this day, which is absolutely incredible. Overall, if these two are throwing at the same time in the pocket, Eddie Alvarez is going to land first almost every single time. Eddie also does a really good job at defending body shots with that lower guard of his, which is going to be very effective against Mike Perry's heavy body game plan. Eddie does a very good job as well against power punchers such as Justin Gaethje at rolling with the punch, and overall he does a good job at managing distance. Even though he's usually at the reach disadvantage, he has solid footwork, and again he mixes up that jab really well. And the thing about Eddie Alvarez as well, he can fight off of the back foot or the front foot. And while this is somewhat true of Mike Perry as well, I think Eddie Alvarez is a better counter striker, and overall he has a higher variance in terms of where he can strike in terms of his footwork. My official prediction for this fight is Eddie Alvarez to win by a very close decision. I think there will be some close calls in terms of stoppages in this fight, but overall I do think Michael Perry's chance at victory in this fight is going to be an early round KO, and I can see this happening as Eddie Alvarez is older at this point, and Mike Perry has a significant amount of power behind his shots, but overall, I see this fight going very similarly to how Michael Venom Page versus Mike Perry went in the earlier rounds, where Mike Perry is losing and he's going to have to grit his way to a victory, and that's something I don't see happening against Eddie Alvarez, as Eddie Alvarez will be as tough and as durable as Mike Perry in those later rounds. Again, it's going to be that speed advantage and that overall sharpness and tightness in Eddie Alvarez's shots compared to Michael Perry's slower, more loose shots, especially with those hooks and those overhand rights. Thanks for watching today's video of Mike Talk Sports. Let me know in the comment section below, do you agree with my take that Eddie Alvarez is going to beat Michael Perry at BKFC 56? If you enjoyed today's video, I really appreciate it, guys. Smack that like and hit subscribe.